So the talk is an attempt to view my work and our work not anymore as a legacy that means hard and maintain, how to maintain and to stay and stayed, but as a new legacy for someone, means as new foundations for next developers. So first, I want to say disclosure. I'm sorry, I'm French, and sometimes I read my text because it's quite difficult. So small aparté. So I hope Neovim developers will get some insights about my ways of thinking when creating plugins like Neogen, that I will talk after, and Neorg GTD. But most importantly, I hope to provide them a glimpse of how I use technology and development for the sake of building new foundations. But let's stay honest. The first thing when I develop is only for curiosity. Like I have time to kill, so I do this. And then afterwards, when the thing is done, I view my development as legacy. So this will be exactly the main talk. So first, who am I? The Prime again did a great presentation. So some people know me for two works. The first, I'm the author of Neogen, who is a toolbox for generating annotations on the go for almost every language and annotation conventions. So what is an annotation? An annotation is when you create a function, you create a documentation for this function on top of it. So the idea is using Tricitor to automatically generate those documentations, and that's all. The second one is Neorg. So I used Neorg to write an implementation of Getting Things Done, who is a methodology to create tasks and manage your projects. So yeah, more than 1 year ago, I discovered Neovim, and it was actually during the VimConf of last year. And during my past year internship, I took the challenge to instantly drop VS Code and start using Neovim. And then it was quite difficult at first, but then after 1 or 2 weeks, it was really good, and I had the flow state, the same flow state as using VS Code before. So then every day it was a blessing to using Neovim, and then like I got into plugin development from now on. So what is will be my talk about? First, I will talk about what is my primary vision. The vision is to be an advocate for expression of creativity through new technologies. Um the medium is divided in three. I will first talk about my past reflections, the emergence of ideas. Afterwards, I talk about how I work currently, and then afterwards some of future possibilities. So this is exactly what I wrote here. First, how I was introduced to Neovim plugin development. Second, how Tricitor inspired me to produce plugin ideas, and then how those ideas, now they are built, can be viewed as legacy, as good legacy. So now that we talk about a lot about legacy, what is exactly legacy? In the definitions of the dictionary, legacy has three meanings. First is the inheritance, means is something that is gifted by someone to someone else. Second is consequence, means that this gift is well given to someone. So that means we have A, B, and then A gives something to B. So this is inheritance and consequence. And third one that is especially common in computer science and development is old and busted. Means so denoting or relating to software that has been superseded but is still used nowadays. So we have this contradiction. Means at the same time, legacy is viewed as a gift, as an inheritance, but at the same time, it's viewed as something old, stale, but that we still use it. So I tried to group those ideas and to come out with a new definition that like groups the three. The definition is something created by a predecessor. So this is point A, left for someone, point B. So a gift is then made, and that could still be necessary today. So we see the usefulness of it. And then let's go in the talk. What is tree-sitter? Because it will be very important for me to explain those ideas that I had just after. Tree-sitter, very easy for people that don't know. For example, my parents. First is a parsing generator for code to build syntax tree for languages. Mean that the code you write will be parsed, will be cut, and then there is a tree that will be executed, and you can make queries on it to get every possible data you want. So, for example, if you want all the functions you have in the code, you can say to tree-sitter, okay, now please get me all the functions of the code, and then it will grab it because it was previously parsed. So what is tree-sitter commonly used for? First, the one that is most used is Neovim themes and plugins for color schemes. Why is so useful? Because as every part of the code is defined, means that every part of this defined code can be highlighted. But we can still use this parsing to do other things. For example, moving or getting into other places of the code. For example, here we can say AF function outer means get me into the outer of the function. Get me the whole function of it. And then we can use tree-sitter for improving other workflows that are not directly related to code. First is Neorg GTD. So what is Neorg? First, Neorg is a plugin that you can that if you know what is org mode, you know what is Neorg. Basically, Neorg is a plugin that is based around a new text format called Neorg, and uses tree-sitter to generate this text format. So that means every part of this text format that can be like Markdown is correctly parsed. And from this, I was like, I used GTD before, so the methodology of managing my tasks. What about having a file format that is parsed and automatically rates GTD actions and GTD views? So this is exactly what's at right of the screen. You can see here that the you can see here that the tasks are written as a Neorg format, and then I can fetch them at right here automatically because they are correctly defined. So this is the first idea that spawned and that was created using tree-sitter from to applying into new ideas. For example, here managing your tasks and projects. The second one is Neogen. So we talked all about Neogen. So let's go back here. When I saw the possibilities of tree-sitter, I knew that I could use it to change, modify very quickly every part of the code I was editing. And then Neogen was created from a personal need to automate my annotation generation. That could only that was born only because tree-sitter allowed me to do it. So what is Neogen? So here we can see that it supports a lot of languages, C, Lua, and for each language, it supports multiple, it can support multiple annotation generators. So what's it is Neogen about? Here you can see a function called say hello world. And what's about Neogen? Neogen creates this. This is the annotation of the function. But then how is created this annotation? The idea is tree-sitter gets it. So how we do it? Every time we have a function, we say to a Neogen, okay, now write to-do description on top of the function. But then if the function has, for example, parameters inside the function, then tree-sitter will grab it, and for every parameter, it will output it into the annotation. The return is the same. If you have a return inside the function definition, then it will be then Neogen will grab it and it will put it at the top of the annotation too. We can see here that this is another say hello word. This one totally not true. It was a bug, but you can see here that it mixed Lua and Python. But you can see here same that the annotation generated is dependent of Python. Here I think is Google Docstrings, but I'm not sure anymore. Some other notable ideas that for me are some quite creative. We can see refactory.nvim created by our good the Primegan that builds on Martin Fowler book about refactoring, like good advices for refactoring your code, and it uses Tricitor to automatically refactor your code. How now that we know that, how development is currently being done in those areas in simplifying workflow. So my goal now is to explain how open source and freedom of plugin creators did make the plugin developers and plugin ecosystem quite flexible. So, but before anything, I have to explain my concept of flexibility. So what is flexibility in general? Flexibility is the ability to easily bend without breaking. For me, in Neovim flexibility is the ability for Neovim developers to easily bend their implementation without breaking their ideas. How do they do this? Well, with serendipity and looking at each other codes, that's what I did. For example, we came along with some good advices for simplifying workflows. So for example, setup functions, exposing APIs from um, plugin developers to users, and then ready to execute actions when you installed those plugins. Then they are automatically available to the inside the command line. In Neorg, there is a special simplification workflow that you can create events, and then you can subscribe to events based on the events you want to subscribe, and then do actions based on those events. Now, let's go to back to the main talk and why legacy can be a good thing indeed. So everything we do is necessary, and that is necessary to someone is a legacy. Vim is legacy because the original ideas, the terminal UI, the motions are reused in Neovim and other text editors. And then Neovim will in turn be viewed as legacy when new development arises that answers new needs than the original idea of Vim. A legacy in sense of new foundations. I like to view a legacy work as building blocks for the house to come. Every generation of development is a new brick that builds upon the previous ones, and our brick can only be as high as the intelligence at the other bricks that were created before. And then Tricitor is legacy because it was used at foundations for projects like Neogen. But to be able to use Tricitor, it had to be embedded easily into Neovim. And then Neogen is legacy because right now it's currently used by people to generate annotations. So now the question is what to come? To resume, every piece of architecture is a legacy to what's come after. Now, some guy popped up in my Twitter feed that a lot of people here I knowing. He's called Trash. And I have 20 seconds of him talking about legacy. I hope that you understand. About future possibilities. Now that we know this, we saw that Neogen, for example, is the last step of one point of legacy. And then there are other spinning ideas that can be generated from those legacy ideas that was first Vim and then Neovim and then Tricitor and then Neogen. Right now, this one can be an example to separate logic code from Neovim specific operations. What is to say? Instead of creating plugins that are entirely dependent inside Neovim, we can separate the logic of it, like an LSP, and the operations needed to to display or to modify the buffers inside the plugin of Neovim. So by separating the two, we can say we can build new plugins that are directly independent from all editors. It's like LSP for plugins, and then those plugins, those LSP styled plugins, can be reused and implemented in every plugin and every text editor plugin. So zk.nvim used this example at the end of the slide. That can be an idea for next to come. So now that the end is approaching, I will be very fast. I ask myself what I can give you apart from my life insights and some inspiration. So my first positive realization is that Neovim community exists. And I define plugin community as a conjunction between plugin developers and the users that you are here. Thanks to the work of developers that create plugins, I quickly realized how important plugins were in the use of Neovim and how connected and important we are to one another in this small development area. Second, we have a strong relationship between user groups. Means that if you're using plugins, you are already an important user. I'll talk about you. Plugin devs, they count on you because you're the best ones to provide bug reports, insights, and maybe development ideas for the plugins you love. But if you are managing and creating plugins, the users count on you because they need daily your plugins in their personal and work life, and so they trust you in their development. So if you are creating Neovim, everyone counts on you. So you're the legends here. So thank you. And then the last realization is legacy helped in finding new creative methods. So to introduce this concept, I want to explain two ways for a plugin to be created. That's what Trash talk, but we didn't listen. First, a single user has a needs and he shares it. That means I want to do something, I will do it, and then afterwards maybe someone else will take this as good work. Second, multiple users have a need, a common need, and one of them minimum creates a plugin. In the second place, we already have the need because multiple people had the need before it. So well, the developer, to create plugins, he has to narrow the expression of his ideas into what is currently possible from the previous legacy ideas that were passed from him. For example, if you want to create a GTD like I did, it was not possible if I didn't had three-seater, if I didn't had Neorg text editor, and then if we go back the chain, if we didn't had Vim and then Neovim. So every piece is important in finding new creative methods.